The photograph slipped out of my mother's Bible like a confession she never meant to make. My 3 children, Emma, Jake, and Sophie, standing in front of a beach house I'd never seen, wearing designer clothes I definitely didn't buy, their arms wrapped around her. My mother, the woman whose couch I'd been sleeping on for 8 months because I lost everything in my divorce. The date on the back, July 2023. 6 months after I'd begged them to visit me. 6 months after they all claimed they were too broke, too busy, too overwhelmed to make the 4-hour drive. But it was the handwriting that made my hands shake. Mom's cursive, shaky but deliberate. Our annual summer trip. Don't tell you know who. You know who?
Me.
Their mother. The woman who'd raised them alone after their father walked out. The woman who'd worked 3 jobs to keep them fed. The woman who'd sold her engagement ring to pay for Jake's college applications. I sat on my childhood bed. Yes, at 52, I was sleeping in my childhood bed and stared at that photo until the faces blurred. Emma looked happier than I'd seen her in years. Jake wore a Hawaiian shirt that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. And Sophie was holding a surfboard. A surfboard! When I'd asked her to help me move boxes last Christmas, she'd said her back hurt. That's when I realized I hadn't been forgotten. I'd been erased. And I was about to discover the conspiracy went deeper than I could have imagined that I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My brain was doing that thing where it replays every conversation, every excuse, every sorry mom. I can't make it this month with new context, with new meaning. For 8 months, I'd been living in this house, walking on eggshells around my mother who criticized everything. How I loaded the dishwasher, how I breathed too loud during her TV shows, how I existed. I'd endured it because I thought I had no choice. Because I thought my kids were struggling like I was struggling. Emma had told me her marketing job barely covered rent. Jake claimed his teacher's salary was a joke. Sophie was supposedly eating ramen every night while working at Target and going to community college. I believed them, sent them the little money I could spare, made myself smaller and quieter so I wouldn't be a burden. The cool mom, the understanding mom, the mom who didn't guilt trip. But that photo rewired everything. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I waited for my mother to take her shower, and I went through her filing cabinet. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost couldn't open the folders. Bank statements, joint accounts with each of my children's names next to my mother's. Emma, $127,000. Jake, $98,000. Sophie, $73,000. Monthly deposits between $3,000 and $5,000. Going back 4 years. I had to sit on the floor. My vision tunneled. Nearly $300,000 total. While I'd been selling my jewelry to buy groceries. While they told me they couldn't afford to visit. While I'd asked them for gas money and they'd made excuses. But the worst part? I didn't know yet that this money was supposed to be mine. That my mother hadn't just bought my children, she'd bought them with what she'd stolen from me. I made a fake Instagram account. Desperate? Absolutely. But Emma's profile was private to my real account, and I needed to see. Her life was a highlight reel of everything I'd never been able to give her. Designer bags. Weekend trips to Napa. Restaurants where appetizers cost $40. And sprinkled throughout like breadcrumbs. My mother's face. Brunch with Nana. Nana treating me again. So blessed. Jake's feed was worse. A Tesla.
A trip to Japan.
Photos from music festivals. My son, who told me he couldn't afford to fix his car, owned a Tesla. Sophie's TikTok destroyed me. Room tours of her bedroom at the beach house, decorated exactly how she'd always dreamed. Makeup hauls worth thousands. And one video that made me physically ill. My Nana basically raised us anyway, so. Basically raised them. I lasted 48 hours before I broke. Walked into the kitchen where my mother was making coffee and said, "I know about the money." She didn't even look surprised. Just sighed. Wondered when you'd figure it out. Why? My voice cracked. Why would you do this? She turned to me with this expression. Not guilt, not shame. Satisfaction. Because someone had to save them from turning out like you, she said simply. Someone had to show them what real family looks like, what stability looks like. Not your constant crisis, your drama, your poor choices. I raised them alone. You raised them poorly, she corrected. You married a worthless man I told you not to marry. Had kids you couldn't afford. Dropped out of college. Every problem in your life is because you never listened. My hands were shaking. So you bought them, turned them against me. I gave them opportunities, showed them success. And yes, I made sure they understood that your chaos isn't normal. She sipped her coffee like we were discussing weather. The money came from your father's investments. Money that was supposed to be yours, actually. But I knew what you'd do with it. Blow it all. Bail out that worthless husband. So I waited. Set up trusts for the kids instead. Your father would have approved. The room tilted. Dad left that money for me, and I made sure it went somewhere useful. She smiled. Actually smiled. The beach house is already in their names. When I die, they get everything, as long as they maintain minimal contact with you. That's when I understood. This wasn't just about money. My mother had orchestrated a years-long campaign to erase me from my own family, and she'd made sure it would continue even after she was dead. I called Emma. She answered on the fourth ring.
Mom.
Not a good time. I know everything. The money, the beach house, the lies. Silence. Then, Nana told us you found out. How long were you planning to keep lying? We weren't lying, she said defensively. We just didn't tell you. There's a difference. Is there? You told me you were broke. You told me you couldn't visit. That money's in a trust. Nana controls it. We get monthly allowances, but the bulk of it we can't touch until... She trailed off. Until what? Until she dies. As long as we've maintained minimal contact with you, for at least 6 months before. Her voice got quieter. Mom, do you know what it was like? Growing up watching you struggle, watching you cry over bills, watching Dad scream at you? We were kids and we had to be adults because you couldn't get it together. When Nana offered us a way out, a way to not end up like you, we took it. And honestly, our lives are better now. She hung up. I sat in my mother's driveway and understood. She'd convinced my children that my poverty was a character flaw. That struggle was something I'd chosen. And they believed her because the alternative was harder, accepting that they'd traded their mother for money. I packed that night, moved into a friend's spare room, found a job managing a grocery store overnight shift, started therapy, learned words like boundaries and narcissistic manipulation and financial abuse. I wrote 3 letters, 1 to each child. I didn't beg. I just reminded them of who we used to be. Jake waiting by the window for me to come home. Emma's dinosaur phase. Sophie singing herself to sleep. I told them I forgave them, that I'd be waiting if they ever wanted to come back. Then I left them on my mother's counter and walked away. 6 months later, my phone rang at 2 a.m. Sophie crying. Mom, I need you. My mother had a heart attack at the beach house. I broke every speed limit getting to that hospital. Found Sophie alone in the waiting room, her perfect makeup ruined, looking 7 years old again. She ran to me like no time had passed. Emma and Jake arrived later. Awkward. Tense. The doctor said someone needed to care for our mother during recovery. My children all had excuses. Work conferences. School years starting. Midterms. I'll do it, I said. They stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Emma laughed bitterly. You? After everything she did? She's still my mother. But also, I'd realized something. My mother spent years trying to prove I was worthless. The ultimate revenge wasn't matching her cruelty. It was rising above it. I moved into her guest room, helped her bathe, eat, exist. We didn't have some tearful reconciliation. We just survived together. And that's when I found them. The real documents. Hidden in a box marked Tax Returns 1987. My father hadn't left money for the grandkids. He'd left it for me. $500,000. To be mine on my 50th birthday. But my mother was the executor. She'd forged documents, created fake trusts, stolen everything and convinced my children it was their inheritance. The conditions about not contacting me? She'd invented those. None of it was real except the theft. I sat holding those papers and I had a choice. Expose her, take it to court, watch my children's comfortable lives collapse, watch my mother face consequences, or put them back and never say anything. I put them back, because winning would have meant becoming her. And I'd spent 52 years letting other people's cruelty define me. I was done. My mother died last month. Peacefully. My children came to the funeral, stood beside me. They'd been visiting more. Seeing me care for the woman who tried to erase me confused them, made them question everything they'd been told about who I was. The will left everything to them, no strings attached, because even she couldn't maintain that cruelty when I was the only one who showed up. Emma pulled me aside after. I've read your letter 100 times. I don't know how to apologize.
Don't apologize, I said.
Just do better going forward. She hugged me, really hugged me, asked me to teach her how I forgave. I didn't forgive her, I said honestly. I just decided hate was heavier than love. And I was tired of carrying heavy things. They offered to share the inheritance. I said no, not from pride, but because some things you have to build yourself. Taking that money would just tie us back into the same web. I still live in my studio apartment. Still work nights. We're rebuilding something, my kids and me. It'll never be what it was. But broken bones heal stronger at the break. Maybe you wanted me to get revenge. To reclaim what was mine. To watch them suffer. But sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from the satisfaction of being right. I rocked my children to sleep when they were small. They grew up and rocked my world apart. And somehow, we're finding our way back. Not because I'm special, because I chose connection over bitterness, healing over revenge.